Okay, good morning, everyone, and welcome to our webinar about valorizing energy data for retail stores. My name is Miriam Cioratto. I am the marketing manager in Energis, and today I will be the moderator of this webinar, in which we will have two expert speakers sharing their knowledge about this topic. They are Dieter Schallenbergh, Commercial Director for Energis, and OGUZ Kiranlar, Energy Engineer and Product Manager at Energis. Energis is an energy efficiency software company with a strong experience in retail sector, providing variety of solutions from the energy efficiency monitoring to the ESG reporting. Our webinar is scheduled to take 45 minutes, and in this first minute, I would like to check with you if everyone can see me and hear me well. Just in case you cannot, please use the question tabs on the bottom. In fact, on the right side of your screen, on the bottom, you should see a bar with two tabs, one for the polls and one for the questions. Please use the questions tab to introduce here any kind of questions you may have, and we will do our best to handle this during the Q&A session at the end of the webinar. In case there are remaining questions, we will handle this separately via email afterward. So just in case you cannot hear me, please write in the questions and I will see it. And additionally, as a last check, I just published now a test poll. You should see a little red notification on the polls tab. If you can, please complete this. I know that for everyone is perfectly working. So just a simple click for the poll test. Let's see. Okay, perfect. Answers are coming. The poll test is working. Okay, 11.2. Everything is working on perfect. So please, I remind you, use the questions tab for any questions you have. Audio infrastructure is in place, and we can wait 3 more minutes, and at 11.5 we start. Good morning, everyone. I see more people coming, so I repeat myself. Welcome to our webinar about valorizing energy data for retail stores. If you cannot hear me or see me well, please use the questions tabs that you can see on the bottom on the right side of your screen. Additionally, here you can introduce all the questions you may have, and we will tackle this during the Q&A session. Side to the questions, there's the polls tab. I just published a poll test, so just click them, and I know that for everyone, everything is working correctly. Okay, I see more votes coming. Okay, perfect. Okay, 1 minute, and then we start. I see more people coming. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to our webinar. Me, my colleagues, who's Kiranlar and Dieter Schallenbergh, we are very happy to see you all here. In less than 1 minute, we start. "30 seconds, and then we start." And then my colleague Dieter will speak. Okay, 11.5. I stop my streaming, and I hand over now to Dieter.
Thank you very much, Miriam. So welcome to all of you. I'm very happy to see that you are here in large numbers and that there is an interest in the topics that we will be explaining today. Of course, the focus today will be on valorization of energy data for retail stores. Now, what does that mean concretely? This, of course, we will discover during the webinar. I hope it will be a very nice introduction to all of you. If there are any questions, which Miriam already mentioned before, if there are any questions, please use the questions tab that you can find in the bottom right corner to share them with us. We will take care of answering all of them, or at least try to answer all of them before the end of this webinar during the Q&A that we will find at the end. That brings me to the calendar. So what is on the calendar or on the agenda for today's webinar? It is, as a first topic, a quick update, very short, on the European energy context that is impacting all of us. That will move forward to the challenges that are facing for the retail sector in specific. How you can come to an informed decision-making on generating savings, because this was a subject of the webinar, and we will put all of that to proof in a demo which will be given by my colleague OGUZ. After that, there should still be 5 to 10 minutes of time for a Q&A, and where possible, we will try to answer all of the questions that you have. So, on the European energy context, there is a lot to be said, but before we dive into that, we have a quick poll question for you. So if you see from the poll section, you will see that there is a new notification. There will be an indication of 1. Please click the polls so that you can answer our poll question, which is: what are the main reasons why you are here today? There are 5 options listed. I like to reduce my costs, energy costs. I like or need to reduce my emissions. I'm here out of interest for everything that is related to ESG reporting, other legal obligations that I might have, or any other reason that was driving you to participate in today's webinar that triggered your interest. So I already see that there is a good number of votes coming in. And while unfortunately I do not have the possibility to share the results visually, I can already start saying that the majority of people today are here to reduce their costs. So 50% of the votes that we received so far are people saying that they are here out of interest for reducing costs, while 30%, 29 to be exact, is here namely for ESG reporting. And then there is an equal spread over the reduction of emissions, legal obligations, and other reasons. So, okay, the big 2 priorities for everybody here today is reduction of costs and ESG reporting. Let's see if we see that reflected in the European energy context. So, what is going on in Europe? Of course, there is a lot going on today. It's definitely not become easier in the past year, let alone the 2 years before that. There is the rising energy prices, but not only are the prices rising, there is a very, very big impact from the market volatility, which makes it quite hard to predict what will be the budget that you have for energy, where you can purchase attractively, when you should purchase, etc. There is additionally the increasing energy demand, which is again putting a stress on that market volatility. and also having as a result energy supply issues. So the topics of energy security is also a very important point. All of these are putting pressures on companies in Europe, possibly outside of it as well. Additionally, there is well known these targets to go for zero, and these can come from European regulations as well as local regulations that we have in various countries, joining as well the ambitious green targets that companies set out of their own policy. So these are also challenges that we need to meet. Company targets that are set to achieve a certain saving, to become carbon neutral, any target that might be set. And as we know, if we want to achieve targets, we need to know how we can get there and follow up on that closely, but more of that will come. The European Commission published not too long ago in February that the energy prices will remain high and volatile at least for 2023. We expect that will be beyond that time, but these are at least the indications given by the European Commissions. Now, with all these challenges, how can you manage the situation? Very simply put, if you want to reduce your costs or you want to do ESG reporting in an efficient way, what you need is an action plan. You need an action plan for energy consumption reduction. Where am I today? How will I approach it? What is the desired outcome? Only if you know those things, you can assemble an action plan for what you will do concretely, when you will do it, in order to achieve the desired outcome. Now, if you want to know where am I and what can I do, that is exactly what you need to know. You need to know where am I today. And we discovered that many of the companies today don't really know where they are because they do not have a good enough level of detail in this situation. If you want to set that action plan, of course, you need to follow energy KPIs. And it is not about following the KPIs. It is about understanding where you are. So it is not in, let's put all the data together and assemble some KPIs in Excel and let's work on that data. What we try to do is make life as simple as possible by bringing the data in an insightful way to you in understandable KPIs. And that is what you will see further down the presentation. There are also a number of challenges within the retail sector, more in specific. And those are the reduction of costs by removing inefficiencies. Our environments in retail are totally different than an industrial facility, for example. So we cannot just say, let's shut off the lighting during the day because it's not going to bring a nice experience to the people in our stores. We cannot say, let's reduce the climatization dramatically because it will not be good for the comfort of the people in our stores. And while in a supermarket, perhaps it can be appreciated or can be done, for a clothing store where people are fitting clothes, of course, you need to guarantee a certain temperature, etc. as well. So how can we help in the reduction of costs by removing these inefficiencies? It is by making the identification of those inefficiencies very, very simple. So we allow simple identification of badly performing stores, which allows you to focus on the low-hanging fruit. That means, where do we see the outliers? Where do we see the bad performers? And then dive in to understand where the waste is and how it can be eliminated. And that could very well be that there is a excessive nighttime consumption of a store, which you could never identify based on utility invoices, but only if you do a good amount of energy monitoring. So monitoring energy, of course, helps identify the inefficiencies, but also monitoring the costs of it. So while monitoring the costs closely leads to sensibilization, it will automatically lead to positive actions. People are much more aware of what is a euro than what is a kilowatt hour. Other challenge is reducing the environmental impact. There are systems in our stores. In this case, there is an example of a supermarket store that cannot just be shut down and that are huge consumers. So we need to be aware, and we need to be aware that they are performing as expected. If there is any deviations, we can act upon it. For the ESG reporting, it is not just a one-shot activity at the end of the year. No? ESG reporting should not be considered something where you collect a bunch of data at the end of the year and then make your report with a lot of effort, but it is really a trajectory throughout the year that you need to follow closely so that you are aware of good results as well. Retailers, well, they are roughly responsible for 25% of global emissions. So we have a good responsibility as the retail industry to carry in that specific domain. But also because retailers, they have many stores, sometimes in a franchising model, getting access to the data that you need for the ESG reporting is, again, for many of you, a big struggle. Based on all these challenges, we know more or less where we need to go, or what we want to achieve. And what we want to achieve, we can do that through informed decision-making. We need to do informed decision-making to generate savings. We cannot just do it based on gut feeling. For that informed decision-making, again, we have a poll. So if you go to the polls section, you'll find a new question there. The question is, what is your current level of access to energy data? To which extent do you have access to energy data? I leave you to read the questions, but I can read them out loud for you as well. First answer, I know my energy consumption, but only from the bills that I receive. Second, I have an energy consumption data for some of the stores, but it is not centralized. Third, I centralize energy consumption data every 15 minutes in a separate database. Data could come from anywhere, or I don't have access to energy data at all. And let's see, we have a couple of votes in already, but not from everyone. So if for some reason you are not finding the poll section, you should be able to see it in the bottom right corner. So votes are coming in. Currently, we see approximately 50% of you say they don't have access to energy data. The second and third most popular options are, I do have energy, but not for all. I do have energy data, but not for all my stores. And I know my energy consumption, but only from the bills I receive. So by now, I think we collected more or less all the votes from the attendees. And still the results are similar. The focus is more on I don't have access to my energy data. And second and third, I know my energy consumption, but only from the bills. I have some data, but it's not at all centralized. Okay, this is something we definitely recognize in the market. So let's move forward to the next slide. What might be surprising to a number of you is when you say I don't have access to my energy data, where this is the majority of people here today, it is good to know that in many cases, there is energy data that exists. So you all have a grid operator that is providing you the electricity, well, or at least providing the facilities for you to get electricity and gas. And those grid operators, sometimes replaced by metering companies or other companies, they hold the data of your consumption. And as a company generally, these are 10 or 15 minutes data that you can have from them, but they do not always make it publicly available, or you are not always aware that you can get this data. We are, and for all the countries that you see in blue, we are providing to our customers our solution, And for many of them, we are providing it through the distribution system operator. So that's the grid operator, or a metering company, or something comparable. And you see a number of them listed there. So in the case that you are not aware, it is important to know that these companies hold your data. And our promise as a company, if you would at some point in time consider working with us, our promise is that we can get the data from these data owners, from these grid operators or metering companies, and integrate it into our solution so that it is converted into insightful information for you. In order to get access to that data, basically the only thing we need is to have a signed mandate from you as a contract holder that we can get access to the data that is on your account. Besides having that data so that you know, okay, this is my current position, this is where I am, it is also important to be able to assemble that action plan to follow up closely on your energy KPIs. And this is a rough example of how we visualize. You can see, okay, we set a certain target for ourselves, or there is a European target of savings that we want to achieve. And this is where we are, and this is how we are performing. We convert that information all to visual, very visual graphics, as well as KPIs such as energy savings, financial savings, carbon emission savings, etc., etc., etc. Could be any KPI that is relevant to you. With that, from our solution, there is a number of things that we want to provide to you as the basis, and this is centralizing all your energy data from these grid operators or from other sources in one place. You will get one single place, that is Energis Cloud, that will centralize all that data for you and make it very much comprehensible. And this will allow you to do, for example, benchmarking. So you see all of your different stores that you have, and you can compare them in their energetic performance quite easily based on various KPIs, such as financial, carbon emissions, and the actual consumption. Also, there are specific dashboards that allow you to do energy analysis, which is ranking your stores based on their consumption, obtaining the energy cost, identifying consumption outside of opening hours to detect what we call waste. Everything that you are consuming outside of opening hours should be considered waste, unless it's for critical systems. And to compare your normal weeks or any other period behavior compared to other similar periods. Regardless of providing you with a tool that allows you to analyze all of this, to dive in and to really properly understand, based on these main meters, how are my stores behaving and what optimization can be done, we also bring to you that information without your need to dive in. So from our solution, we provide energy reports on a weekly basis, and you will receive email notifications in case of anomalies. Anomalies are unexpected behaviors. That means if there is an unexpected consumption, could be during the day, could be during the night time, we will detect it with our system and inform you so that you are aware that one of your 100,000, 5,000 stores is behaving in an unexpected manner. And that alert can be emailed to anybody in your organization that would be responsible over the specific asset where the deviation is happening. With that, I conclude my part of the slides. I hope the introduction, while being swift, it was also clear and transparent. If there are any questions, again, don't forget to put them in the questions section. And for the demo, I would like to hand over the word to my colleague, OGUZ.
Thanks, Dieter. So in fact, these notions that you mentioned about how to address these challenges that you referred to, what I will try to do with the demo is a bit try to show you what in fact these addressed challenges are happening via this software Energis cloud. And for that, for this demo scenario, we picked with some real data, a portfolio of stores around Europe. In reality, we are looking at 600 plus stores in this demo that I will show. But for demo purposes, we kept 8 of them to look at their data and understand how energy management of such portfolio could be done, so that we can gain energy savings, monitor those savings, refer them into ESG reporting and such. Let me share my screen and dive into it directly. So, Energis Cloud is a web-based application, in fact. So the way I am accessing to it right now is from Chrome with a certain credential login. And it is going to bring me to a home page which shows me globally my portfolio. The first thing Dieter said, in fact, was that one needs to know what they are doing today, which is the eagle eye view. From a really high level, I need to understand for all of the locations that I have, what is their energy performance. And the best way to understand what their energy performance is, in fact, comparing them to each other. So therefore, in my homepage space here, what I want to have is having either on a map or a table or in a bar chart to look at them by comparing with each other. On a map, for instance, I see on a location of every store that I have with different colors. These colors, when I dive into them, are in fact showing me, are they doing better or worse compared to the others? This comparison is important to make, the two stores that are actually comparable, meaning if I take only their consumption, maybe a bigger store will consume more, so it's a bit meaningless. But then I need the KPI level here. What is the first KPI that makes things comparable for me in the energy field? It is looking at their consumption by the surface that they have. Depending on the type of business I have, I could also have here, for instance, weather normalization, not only surface normalization. But my task is, if I'm putting colors on my stores based on their performance, I'm comparing them, I want something meaningful. So in a map on a daily basis, I can look which one is doing better or worse for a given time. In this case, for the February 2023, I wanted to see that. Then it is not enough to compare only electricity or gas, because clearly some of the stores, depending on the country as well, will have heating purpose gas. Some will be only based on electricity or even other energy vectors like central heating maybe. But in the end, what I want to do is to have my total consumption, normalize it, and have a comparison. Equally, I want to have it in a bar chart where I see each of my stores, which one is doing better and worse. This is, again, the first task that I had. What is the global situation? Then the next thing I want to do is, again, for a given time period, to look at my total consumption of the electricity and gas in this case, but also reflect it in cost. So only kilowatt hours, if I cannot convert it to the cost, it will be difficult. Maybe not as much for an energy manager, but for sure other stakeholders in your organization, like the finance manager and others, that needs to follow up the energy performance to reflect it in other reports that they have. And of course, it is important to have a view for every store that I have, how is their specific consumption profile is. This global view of looking at each of these stores will give me an understanding, but it will not give me directly the saving opportunities. For that, by using this map in here, I want to dive into one of my stores to look more in depth, focused only for this store. What do I see? I see the same information that I had for my entire portfolio, but this time for only this store as an overview. But then what is interesting for me, especially for a retail that is really based on opening hours, so I'm generating the revenue in my opening hours, but my costs continue when the store is closed. And that's a very critical thing for the stores, in general, the retail sector. So the important KPI that I have in here is, how is my consumption profile during the opening hours? The blue background here is the open hours and the closed hours. So how much I'm consuming when I'm using the space to generate revenue and how much I don't. In other words, what are my waste consumption during the nighttime? So this 92% that you see in here is how much I am decreasing between the opening hours and closed hours. I should typically be benchmarking my entire portfolio on a weekly basis, checking if this number is high enough. I was diving into the, let's say, analysis a little bit, and I was curious to go back a little bit to see the times, can even go further, where this value was really going down. A week that I encountered in here, it goes lower than 90%, in fact. And that's typically a point for me to say the night consumption is excessive. Another approach is to see, it's very important to compare the time periods that are quite similar. What do I mean by that? I mean, for instance, every week that you are making your business run, you should have a similar profile of consumption. And any big deviation from this consumption is actually detected, and that's the waste that you see. So in this case, we are putting several weeks on top of each other, and we are seeing that one of the week, for sure, the green one in here, is consuming than the others. Is it a wrong set point of the heating system or cooling system, or is it actually expected because there is an operation going on? These questions need to be answered. But here we are only monitoring, we are not answering those questions. Answering those questions would require the right smart alerting system that tell you the reasons. The next thing that I should do in order to get some insights about my consumption and get savings out of it, and that's rather straightforward one, is looking at a certain period, in this case, entire last year, and checking the power that I consumed. What I do here is every bar that you see in this chart is the power I consumed for an hour, for 1 year of time. And for every hour I am checking, if I exceeded my subscribed power, in other words, the amount of power that contractually, if I overpass, I have to pay a penalty. If I don't overpass, I will not pay the penalty. So when I put this threshold here, which is 41 18 kilowatts, as you see, I need to see for a year how much percent of the time I exceeded, therefore I had to pay penalty. Was 2% of the time passing it costed me a lot of penalty payment, so that my action plan, energy saving action plan, maybe should be moving this 18 kilowatts into 22 kilowatts, so that I will only pass 0.5% of the time, and it will make sense for me to pay more for the contracted power with my energy supplier, but avoiding penalties will save it. That's an action point for me after looking at this screen to say, okay, I need to do an optimization on my contracts. What is it? That's my next step. And for your information, Energis Cloud, a contract optimization where the system gives you, based on your data, the best kilowatts that you should go and talk with your energy supplier to get, is available. So the first action point for me, if I was the energy manager of a portfolio, would be doing such activity. And all basing, of course, on the 15-minute data that I am collecting, as Dieter showed, from the grid operators. Lastly, the gas is also an important parameter for us. And when it comes to gas, especially for stores in Europe, the correlation between the gas consumption and weather is inevitable. So the system is collecting data of the weather for me so that I can see based on the weather. And here, that's a bit what I see. For the weather conditions that I have, in other words, heating degree days, or the days that I should be heating up the building so that inside the comfort conditions are good. Based on this, what is my consumption profile looking like? When I put all of my stores next to each other, if my consumption is getting higher and higher for the needs of the heating degree day that I have, it means that one is consuming way more than the other. Combine this information into more detailed opening hours, non-opening hours conditions that we have, and put a smart alert to catch the conditions, you will see possibly that some of the set points are not well adjusted. Sometimes it is overly heated or cooled down even for the electricity parts. And in my action plan, that will be the next thing. Again, only operationally, nothing to do with changing systems that would gain electricity or gas savings for me. In a nutshell, these are the type of information I get in the first instance before I start an energy saving action plan by really basing on the 15 minutes energy data. With that, I will conclude my demo for now. But of course, in the Q&A session, if you have any questions for the software or for how the approach to this energy action plan, I'm happy to answer.
Okay. Okay, Yus, many thanks for your knowledge and the insights you shared. The demo was super interesting, and I hope also our attendees found it relevant and interesting. And I would like to let you know all that this is a series of webinar, meaning that more will come about a retail sector. And you will be advised via email from the email you provided for subscribe to this webinar as soon as the dates are confirmed. So don't forget to check your email, and for sure you're more than welcome to follow our LinkedIn company page, in which we publish insights, news, information about Energis, and for sure about webinars. And additionally, I'd like to tell you that after this webinar, you will receive a follow-up email that contains a survey. It's a simple survey that requires a few minutes of your time, but for us, it's really, really important to receive your feedback so we know how to improve for the future. And here, as you can see, there are the details, contact details of our colleagues. They will be more than happy to reply via email, phone call, contact on LinkedIn to any kind of questions you may have also after the end of this webinar. So really don't be shy and ask your question. And now, 11:38, I think we can dive into the Q&A session because some interesting questions came during this time. So I stop my microphone and I let you, Dieter and OGUZ.
Okay. In fact, I'm looking at the questions that arrived. The first one that got my attention, or chronologically also asked earlier, I see that around the weather condition, we have a question. So the question goes, is the weather condition based on weather forecasting or on locally measured temperature, like an external thermometer? In fact, by default in the software, we have a feature that allows you, when you select a location, like your address of the building, automatically it gets the weather data related. It uses either nearest weather station available for the location that you selected and combines this data to give you a, how do you say, quite accurate weather condition in near real time, hourly for that place, which is more than enough to do what I just showed. But next to that, sometimes the project need is a little bit different. For instance, indeed, there are local weather stations, sensors that sense the data in the building for a reason they want to have it. And then because we are data source agnostic, meaning whatever data is there, we are able to collect it and put it into system. Then we can replace or put to next to each other our weather stations and this local sensor data coming in. Or in other cases, there are some other project needs where the data coming from a specific space, like we are in Belgium and there is the official weather data of Belgium, KMI. In some cases, this is needed, and we go and pick that data from this data source and put it into the system. So the answer in short is we are quite flexible in which data can be used, and there is an out-of-the-box data service already in. With this, I'm quickly looking at the questions that we had. Another one that we have is, regarding ESG reporting, how does the platform allow to report on scope 1, 2, and 3? That's quite a good question. In fact, to the software, it is quite, how do you say, the software is built to get any type of emission-related data in. Scope 1 and 2 will be covering all your energy-related data. So all that we looked in here will be reflected into the carbon emissions with the right conversion factors based on the country or other specificities. And then for the scope 3, the type of emissions that you might have not related to energy, such as your transportation of the employees or upstream, downstream, other emissions, will also be able to put into the system from other ERP systems or other legacy softwares that you might have. It again will do the job of centralization of this data, apply the right conversion factors, and follow the reporting requirements that the framework that you want to follow. It can be greenhouse gassing, it can be other frameworks that you have in reporting reasons. It will be converted into them. So we are really treating the time series data coming in at the end, converting it into an accurate way, and having the functionalities to make the right reporting that you need, whichever legislation you are following.
Thank you, OGUZ. I see another question that I would like to take. The question is, what are the options if data from the grid operator is not available? It's a very valid point. So in this webinar, we have focused on the main meter data and how you can convert that into valuable information that can help assemble that action plan to reduce your energy consumption or to comply with the local regulations. But in fact, as a solution, we offer a platform that is not only working with those main meters, those main meter data. This is for the introductory webinar that we have today, the point of focus, but we will go into more depth in the following webinars that Miriam already announced. There will be following webinars for retail. We will be going into more depth on how to collect the data that is not coming from these grid operator meters. And just in short, that could be coming from the sub-meters that are already in place. It could be coming from IoT devices that you have that are producing data. It could be coming from imported files. It could be coming from BMS systems, but any type of data that can be collected or any type of data that is produced, we can centralize, aggregate into Energis Cloud for you so that you have the full picture. In addition, we also have our own solutions that we provide for data logging. So if no equipment would be installed in your store or you do not have a partner, we also have our own solutions to get data from a site that does not have grid operator data available. I see another question which is, to my understanding, somehow related. What about water data? In this demo that we saw, we did not speak about water. In some cases, the facility that you have, the store that you have, will have a digital water meter that is also communicating its data through the electricity meter back to the grid operator, etc. And we can fetch the data from there and can be perfectly included in Energis Cloud, so yet you can monitor also the water consumption. For the events that would not be there and water is to your interest, because we also see quite a big amount of water inefficiencies or leaks in stores, that can easily be detected with our software. It is always the possibility to install a smart logger on the water meter, whether that's the main meter or a sub-meter that would be somewhere inside the building. But again, that will be come back to in a later webinar that we will organize. Let's have a look at the other questions that are there, because there's quite a list, and I fear we will not be able to answer all of them, as we have come already to the formal end of the webinar. Let's see if there is still one that we can do before closing. Is it possible to have a product demo? Yes, of course, that is certainly possible. You can always write to myself and OGUZ. You have our details here. And we will be more than happy to set up a session together with you, which will take generally half an hour to 1 hour, where we go in depth into your specific situation and understand more about how we can provide a solution to you. With that, I feel we need to close the session. The people that asked questions that we were not able to tackle yet, we will for sure come back to you in the coming hours or days with a response. We know the email address with which you subscribed, and it is linked to the question that you asked, so you can be confident that we will return to you with an answer for your question.
Yes, exactly. Thank you, Dieter. Thank you, OGUZ. So 11:47, I think we can say we can close here. Many thanks to everybody that you came today. We really appreciate you be here. A special thanks for my colleagues, Dieter and OGUZ, for your preparation, the knowledge you shared. I hope it was valuable and interesting to everybody. Really, many thanks again to every one of you. Thank you. We can close here.
Thank you.
Thank you.
See you next time. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Thank you.